You're watching Truth Cherry. Like, subscribe, and comment. The Twitter Files, Part 5. The removal of Donald Trump from Twitter. On the morning of January 8, 2021, President Donald Trump, with one remaining strike before being at risk of permanent suspension from Twitter, tweets twice. At 6:46 a.m., the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America First, and Make America Great Again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. The second tweet at 7:44 a.m., to all of those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. For years, Twitter had resisted calls both internal and external to ban Trump, on the grounds that blocking a world leader from the platform, or removing their controversial tweets, would hide important information that people should be able to see and debate. Our mission is to provide a forum that enables people to be informed and to engage their leaders directly. The company wrote in 2019. Twitter's aim was to protect the public's right to hear from their leaders and to hold them to account. But after January 6, as Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger have documented, pressure grew, both inside and outside of Twitter, to ban Trump. There were dissenters inside Twitter. Maybe because I am from China, said one employee, on January 7, I deeply understand how censorship can destroy the public conversation. In response to the employee from China, another employee wrote, I understand this fear. But, I also think it's important to understand that censorship by a government is very different than censorship of the government. The First Amendment in the United States, and similar legislation in other countries with similar concepts, exists specifically to prevent the government from silencing the people. I respect that, but realistically, we impose far stricter rules on effectively everyone else on the platform. We started labeling and restricting his tweets when they became a threat to democracy, and seemed like that was our red line. Yesterday, he clearly attempted to overthrow our democratic system of government and showed no signs of remorse. If this is not a clear reason to suspend him, again, as an unhinged ruler attempting to subvert the most powerful democracy in the world, I'm not sure what would be. But voices like that one appear to have been a distinct minority within the company. Across Slack channels, many Twitter employees were upset that Trump hadn't been banned earlier. After January 6, Twitter employees organized to demand their employer ban Trump. There is a lot of employee advocacy happening, said one Twitter employee. I am still struggling to understand the decision not to ban Trump altogether, given he is inciting people to violence that has led people to being killed. And I think we owe people an explanation externally. Another employee responds. This is the elephant in the room. Another employee says. It feels like Twitter policy is engaged with someone acting in bad faith, and we won't acknowledge it. Do we have any belief that Trump will stop tweeting incitements to V? Another employee chimes in. If Alex Jones was shut down for an insightful redaction, he's far exceeded that standard. I think a lot of employees must share these concerns. Is there any sort of channel or group where we can organize more action? There is a lot of employee advocacy happening both here and in this group. I understand he was our president and that may have been the reason why we were hesitant to do it. But, I think come January 20th, there is absolutely no excuse why his account shouldn't be suspended for good. We have to do the right thing and ban this account, said one staffer. It's pretty obvious he's going to try to thread the needle of incitement, without violating the rules, said another. That last sentence, we have to do the right thing here and ban this account. The poster repeats that line 2 more times for emphasis. Another staffer says, we don't have a good track record of acting on his account except in the clearest and most explicit of cases, and even then. In my opinion, extraordinary circumstances demand extraordinary leadership. It took 3 years, but I've lost faith, said another employee. An employee posts the reported vote totals for Trump. The last comment was previously quoted, and more of the same anti-Trump comments. In the early afternoon of January 8, the Washington Post published an open letter signed by over 300 Twitter employees to CEO Jack Dorsey, demanding Trump's ban. We must examine Twitter's complicity in what President-elect Biden has rightly termed insurrection. But the Twitter staff assigned to evaluate tweets quickly concluded that Trump had not violated Twitter's policies. "I think we'd have a hard time saying this is incitement," wrote one staffer. "It's pretty clear he's saying the American patriots are the ones who voted for him and not the terrorists. We can call them that, right?" From Wednesday. Another staffer agreed. "Don't see the incitement angle here." Anika Navaroli writes, "I see redacted name has pinged us to ask about incitement for the DJT tweet and want to see if we can align." Another staffer responds, "I don't see the incitement of fear. What PC could it be trying to incite fear about?" Here is the screenshot of the previously quoted staffer who questions the Twitter narrative. "I also am not seeing clear or coded incitement in the DJT tweet," wrote Anika Navaroli, a Twitter policy official. "I'll respond in the elections channel and say that our team has assessed and found no vios or violations for the DJT one." She does just that. As an FYI, safety has assessed the DJT tweet above and determined that there is no violation of our policies at this time. A redacted name says to Yoel, "Sorry, I stepped out for a while. Let me know, Yoel, if any action will be taken." Anika Navaroli responds with her findings that the tweet does not violate any policy. Later, Navaroli would testify to the House January 6 committee. "For months I had been begging and anticipating and attempting to raise the reality that if we made no intervention into what I saw occurring, people were going to die." Next, Twitter's safety team decides that Trump's 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time tweet is also not in violation. They are unequivocal, it's clear no violation. It's just to say he's not attending the inauguration. In response to this statement, another staffer says, "People might be saying that this is the proof that he doesn't support a peaceful transition." To understand Twitter's decision to ban Trump, we must consider how Twitter deals with other heads of state and political leaders, including in Iran, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. In June 2018, Iran's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei tweeted hateful anti-Semitic slurs toward Israel, directly threatening harm. Please read the screenshot here for context. Twitter neither deleted the tweet nor banned the Ayatollah. In October 2020, the former Malaysian Prime Minister said it was a right for Muslims to cause millions harm. Twitter deleted his tweet for glorifying violence, but he remains on the platform. The tweet screenshot was taken from the Wayback Machine Internet Page Archive. Muhammadu Buhari, the president of Nigeria, incited against pro-Biafra groups. "Those of us in the fields for 30 months, who went through war," he wrote, "will treat them in the language they understand." Twitter deleted the tweet but didn't ban Buhari. In October 2021, Twitter allowed Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to call on citizens to take up arms against the Tigray region. Twitter allowed the tweet to remain up, and did not ban the Prime Minister. Here is a screenshot of that tweet, with a warning label added by Twitter that reads, "This tweet violated the Twitter rules about abusive behavior." However, Twitter has determined that it may be in the public's interest for the tweet to remain accessible. In early February 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government threatened to arrest Twitter employees in India, and to incarcerate them for up to 7 years after they restored hundreds of accounts that had been critical of him. Twitter did not ban Modi. Here is a screenshot of an article about it. Twitter blocks accounts in India as Modi pressures social media, the headline reads. The platform's problems in the country offer a stark example of the difficulty of adhering to its free speech principles amid government worries over its influence. But Twitter executives did ban Trump, even though key staffers said that Trump had not incited not even in a coded way. Less than 90 minutes after Twitter employees had determined that Trump's tweets were not in violation of Twitter policy. Vijay Agadi, Twitter's head of legal, policy and trust asked whether it could in fact be coded incitement to further violence. In this communication, Vijay Agadi says, "Thanks. The biggest question is whether a tweet like the one this morning from Trump, which isn't a rule violation on its face, is being used as a coded incitement to further violence. If you have any context or insight we should consider, I'm all ears." Use of term American patriots and they will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape or form. A staffer responds. This is an interesting question. I am going to speak with my team ASAP to see if we can run a quick survey to get reactions to the language contained in the tweet and get back to you. Vijaya says, I'm not sure I would rely on a survey. I worry about how that would be perceived externally. Wondering if we have anything in past research that could be relevant. A few minutes later, Twitter employees on the scaled enforcement team suggest that Trump's tweet may have violated Twitter's glorification of violence policy. If you interpreted the phrase American patriots to refer to the rioters. Team Scale is asking if we would consider Trump's tweet for GOV if we consider American patriots to refer to the rioters. They have a point. From my point of view. Another staffer says, Scale has said they understand our position but will continue to push their gov assessment with leadership. They see it that he is the leader of a violent extremist group who is glorifying the group and its recent actions. Do you think we should square off on Gov and the DJT assessment, or would it be helpful at this point? Anika Navaroli responds. I think it could be helpful to maybe have a write-up of what a violation assessment could look like. Just in case Scale tips the balance and that becomes the decision. Things escalate from there. Members of that team came to view him as the leader of a terrorist group responsible for violence and deaths comparable to Christchurch shooter or Hitler, and on that basis, and on the totality of his tweets, he should be deplatformed. In this communication, just to update you, I spoke to redacted name just now. They understand our assessment of this individual tweet, but they now view him as the leader of a terrorist group responsible for violence and deaths comparable to Christchurch shooter or Hitler. And on that basis, and on the totality of his tweets, he should be deplatformed. They will continue to push that argument with leadership and we will see where it falls. 2 hours later, Twitter executives host a 30-minute all-staff meeting. Jack Dorsey and Vijaya Gotti answer staff questions as to why Trump wasn't banned yet. But they make some employees angrier. Multiple tweeps, also known as Twitter employees, have quoted the Banality of Evil suggesting that people implementing our policies are like Nazis following orders, relays Yoel Roth to a colleague. A colleague says, I am not sure who should hear this, but if you look at the conversation in Slack group, plenty of employees are not responding well to the 30-minute brief. I feel people want to feel heard and having someone with the right purview to reason with. And yet, I am sure Jack and Vijaya are totally saturated. I wonder if we can mobilize people who are on the peripheral of decision-making but not all consumed to engage with internal discussions. Roth says. Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on it. Candidly, not a lot of people who are close to the decisions would feel safe engaging there. Multiple tweets have quoted the Banality of Evil suggesting that people implementing our policies are like Nazis following orders. Which, as someone responsible for our policies who had direct family members in Auschwitz, is not exactly an environment I want to wade into. People are angry and want to express themselves, but the way the conversation happens can close off meaningful engagement. Dorsey requested simpler language to explain Trump's suspension. Roth wrote, God help us. Makes me think he wants to share it publicly. An employee says to Yoel Roth. If we get close to suspension and an analysis of 8chan or Parler is part of the decision, any links to that content would be helpful for us with Trusted. If possible, I'd like those services to pay a price here. Yoel responds with. Yep. Noted. Dell is rewriting the doc per request from Jack to make it simpler. Which, God help us, makes me think he wants to share it publicly. 1 hour later, Twitter announces Trump's permanent suspension. Due to the risk of further incitement of violence. Many at Twitter were ecstatic. Staffers rejoice. Team DJT is suspended. Oh my God! Exclamation points. Ah! In others' reactions. Well, this feels like a piece of history. It is. Saw the message, thank you everyone for your impactful work this week. For the discussion and for drafting all these complex assignments. I am very proud to work and learn from you every day. Wishing you a good weekend. And congratulatory. Big props to whoever in Trust and Safety is sitting there whack-a-moling these Trump accounts. Can we get them one of these awesome cards I've heard about? Definitely some extraordinary acts of awesomeness going on around Twitter right now. Don Jr.'s account needs to be locked too. By the next day, employees expressed eagerness to tackle medical misinformation as soon as possible. What they said: "Yes, we absolutely plan to do this in 2021. With the timeline being as soon as possible. COVID is one specific disease, medical misinformation is a much broader category of harmful content. We've laid a lot of the groundwork for policy and product behavior through our work on COVID and the election. The Misinfo policy team, along with the folks in health experience, TWS, research, and other teams across the company, are now focused on getting to a place of improved maturity in how our policies are actualized. Across reporting, operations, global scale, scope, etc. We'll have more to share on this soon. Thank you." For the longest time, Twitter's stance was that we aren't the arbiter of truth. Wrote another employee, which I respected but never gave me a warm fuzzy feeling. In that communication, an employee writes, "Very excited to see us handling more categories of misinformation." For the longest time, Twitter's stance was that we aren't the arbiter of truth, which I respected but never gave me a warm fuzzy feeling. That said, my dad is an MD and medical misinformation is a real hard topic. Even for COVID, we only covered a narrow category of information. As an example take vitamin C, vitamin D, elderberry, and xylitol with GSE daily to reduce risk. Is good information, creative marketing, or misinformation? Personally, I'm not sure, and I suspect there are views on both sides. But Twitter's COO Parag Agrawal, who would later succeed Dorsey as CEO, told head of security Mudge Satko, "I think a few of us should brainstorm the ripple effects of Trump's ban." Agrawal added, "Centralized content moderation, in my opinion, has reached a breaking point now." In that screenshot, Parag says, "I think a few of us should brainstorm the ripple effects and potential fragmentation of public conversation and how we might adapt." Mudge says, "Who are you suggesting?" Parag answers, "Not sure, a few of us on staff, maybe, to start." He continues with, "The future of public conversation feels uncertain to me. To my mind, we need to move fast towards opening up control over policies and enforcement and decentralizing it. Centralized content moderation, in my opinion, has reached a breaking point now." In a continued conversation between Parag and another colleague, that colleague writes, "Interested to hear what people think now that it's played out the way it has." Parag says, "I think more important question now is the future of public conversation. In my mind, this is the end of the road for centralized content moderation. Hackered to believe that this approach will be sustainable moving forward." Suggested to Mudge that a few of us get together to anticipate ripple effects and decide on how we want to mobilize for the change ahead. Outside the United States, Twitter's decision to ban Trump raised alarms, including with French President Emmanuel Macron, German Prime Minister Angela Merkel, and Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Macron told an audience he didn't want to live in a democracy where the key decisions were made by private players. "I want it to be decided by a law voted by your representatives, or by a regulation, governance, democratically discussed and approved by democratic leaders." Merkel's spokesperson called Twitter's decision to ban Trump from its platform problematic, and added that the freedom of opinion is of elementary significance. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny criticized the ban as an unacceptable act of censorship. Whether you agree with Navalny and Macron or the executives at Twitter, we hope this latest installment of #The Twitter Files gave you insight into that unprecedented decision. From the outset, our goal in investigating this story was to discover and document the steps leading up to the banning of Trump and to put that choice into context. Ultimately, the concerns about Twitter's efforts to censor news about Hunter Biden's laptop, blacklist disfavored views, and ban a president aren't about the past choices of executives in a social media company. They are about the power of a handful of people at a private company to influence the public discourse and democracy. This was reported by Bari Weiss and the following people: Michael Schellenberger, Isaac Grafstein, at Snoozywise, Olivia Rangold, Peter Savadnik, and Nellie Bowles at the Free Press. You've been watching Truth Cherry. Thank you. Please subscribe.